There has also been rhetoric from the president and senior officials painting Democrats and people who disagree with him as enemies. This is a slippery slope. Once you label your fellow Americans as enemies, you can justify using force against them. Mr. Young, if the president or secretary asked you to authorize the military to target civilians within American soil based solely on their political affiliation, would you support it, yes or no? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. President Trump has once again violated the Constitution, states' rights, and Americans' rights by federalizing Illinois National Guard and deploying Texas National Guard troops to Illinois against the wishes of democratically elected officials. Trump insists on misusing the military against his political opponents and people who did not vote for him, not only in Illinois, but in Portland, Los Angeles, D.C., and Memphis. And it must be stopped. Every Democratic member of this committee has called for a hearing on military deployments to American cities. This administration must justify to the American public why it insists on using the military to confront Americans at home. This administration must answer why, if DHS officials in Broadview or LA or Portland were in fact so overwhelmed by protesters, as Trump claims, that they needed military protection, why these same DHS agents were able to shoot at protesters, wounding civilians, incapacitate peaceful protesters, as well as shooting tear gas at over 24 Chicago police officers and propel agents from a helicopter to terrorize an apartment building in the middle of the night. We know deploying the military is not about protecting DHS officials or federal property, because these same officials are escalating their tactics every day to provoke a manufactured crisis to justify sending in the military onto our peaceful city streets. We know this is not about crime fighting, because Trump has literally defunded the police by slashing $800 million in public safety programs. So, what is this about? The president has been clear. He wants to use the military in American cities to crush dissent and erode our constitutional rights instead of protecting and defending them like his oath of office requires. And I am concerned that the nominees testifying here today have been complicit in this administration's militarized assault on American cities and will continue to empower these irresponsible actions. Mr. Young, you were acting general counsel from 20th of January until 31 July of this year, during which time you advised on a series of dangerous and unprecedented decisions to deploy National Guard and active duty troops to American streets, convert military bases to support DHS and house detainees, and appoint military judge advocates to serve as immigration judges, despite them not having the relevant immigration law experience. Now, you are being considered to be general counsel for the Army, where you will once again advise on consequential decisions on how to train, equip, and deploy Army, National Guard, or active duty troops. Mr. Young, have you prepared or approved any legal opinion about authorizing any state's National Guard units to deploy across state lines without the consent of the governor or other leaders in the receiving state? And if so, will you provide it to us?
Thank you, Senator. To answer the question, we have the use of National Guard personnel.
So yes or no? Have you provided that type of an opinion? Yes or no? And will you provide a copy of that advice to us?
Senator, what I have advised my client in the executive branch regarding the execution of executive functions is privileged, and I would, unless my client allows me to share that, I would consider it privileged.
Well, we will work on that. There has also been rhetoric from the president and senior officials painting Democrats and people who disagree with him as enemies. This is a slippery slope. Once you label your fellow Americans as enemies, you can justify using force against them. Mr. Young, if the president or secretary asked you to authorize the military to target civilians within American soil based solely on their political affiliation, would you support it, yes or no?
No.
Thank you. The president wants to use our military as his personal police force to send troops into American cities to detain civilians on our bases, to intimidate people who dare to disagree with him. That is not defense. That is repression. If we turn the world's finest fighting force against its own people, who will win? Not the American people, not our service members who did not sign up to be used as political props, to be pitted against their fellow Americans, or to waste their precious time patrolling American streets. Only Donald Trump and our global enemies who will exploit our distraction win in this scenario. The United States military defends Americans. It does not police them. It protects our freedoms. It does not suppress them. Mr. Chair, I ask unanimous consent that you, in consultation with the ranking member, schedule an open hearing to receive testimony on this abuse of the military from the Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and General Counsel of the Department.
That is not a proper
unanimous consent request.
This administration has refused to provide answers to Congress and the American public about its militarization of our streets, refusing to put legal opinions in writing, hiding the faces of DHS officials, and running away when officials exercise their constitutional duty to conduct oversight visits. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Hiding is not something you do when you're proud of your actions. Dodging around direct questions from this oversight body, like you have done today, Mr. Young, it's also not something you do when you're proud of your actions. It's what you do when you know you are wrong. The American people deserve answers. I urge the chairman and my Republican colleagues to hold a
At a Senate hearing, Senator Tammy Duckworth sharply criticized President Trump for what she called an unconstitutional and politically motivated use of military force inside the United States. She accused the administration of violating both the Constitution and state sovereignty by deploying the Texas National Guard to Illinois against the wishes of state officials. Duckworth said Trump was misusing the military not for national defense, but to target political opponents and intimidate Americans in cities that did not support him. She pointed to incidents in Portland, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., and Memphis as part of a broader pattern of abuse, describing reports of federal agents shooting at peaceful protesters, injuring civilians, and using helicopters to terrorize neighborhoods in Chicago. According to her, the administration's actions were not about protecting Department of Homeland Security personnel or federal property, but rather about provoking chaos to justify military intervention. Duckworth also noted that Trump had cut $800 million from public safety programs, calling it hypocritical for him to claim he was fighting crime while defunding police and community initiatives. She accused him of trying to crush dissent and erode constitutional rights instead of upholding them. Her questioning focused on Mr. Young, who had served as acting general counsel during the period when these deployments occurred. Duckworth pressed him on whether he had prepared or approved legal opinions authorizing National Guard deployments across state lines without the consent of governors. Young declined to share his advice, citing executive privilege, which drew further frustration from Duckworth. She also warned that the president's rhetoric, portraying Democrats and critics as enemies, was dangerous, arguing that once fellow Americans are labeled as enemies, it becomes easier to justify using force against them. When asked directly whether he would ever authorize the military to target civilians based on their political affiliation, Young answered no. Duckworth condemned the administration's actions as a militarized assault on American cities and said the military must never be used as a political police force. The United States military defends Americans. It does not police them, she said, urging that Congress demand transparency and answers from the Defense Department. She called for an open hearing with the Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the Department's General Counsel to explain the administration's decisions. Duckworth ended her remarks by saying that hiding behind privilege and refusing to answer questions is not the behavior of officials proud of their actions. It's the behavior of those who know they are wrong. She said the American people deserve accountability for the misuse of military power on their own soil.